Hello, my perfectly putrid pariahs. I'm Ryan Rawl, and this is RK Critic. My co-host Denna is under the desk right now, and today we are going to talk about Preacher. So, Preacher is a comic book by Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon, and it was adapted into a comic or a TV show by Seth Rogen, yes, him, Sam Catlin, and Evan Goldberg. They created just a phenomenal piece of cinematic mastery here. This show is phenomenal. It stars Dominic Cooper as Jesse Custer, and he is a preacher's son that turned mercenary slash bank robber slash all around badass. And the show centers around him returning to his hometown and his love Tulip, who is played by Ruth Negga. And in the show, it's Jesse Custer is given the ability of Genesis. This isn't really a spoiler, it's kind of the whole premise of the show, but Genesis is the product of an angel and a demon's love. And the reason an angel and a demon aren't allowed to have kids is because they create Genesis. And what Genesis is an entity that has the ability to subvert willpower. So in this world with God and all this other stuff, willpower is the central ability that humans have that keep them human, make them powerful on Earth kind of thing. With Genesis, you have the ability to erase free will. The same thing happens with angels and demons, and basically almost everybody is subject to Genesis. So Jesse Custer, this ultimate badass, half good, half evil, perfect person for the job, gets Genesis, and Genesis just kind of wants to hang out with Jesse. So that's kind of why Genesis picks Jesse. He's kind of one foot on either side. He's not good, but he's not bad either. He'll help somebody if they're being beaten up, but he'll also rob a bank and shoot cops. So, whatever. So they meet Cassidy, who is a vampire. Not much else to say about that. He's a couple hundred years old, and he's just kind of bored with life, so he does a lot of drugs and fucked up stuff. So he's played by, I always forget his first name, Joe Gilgun. He's Rudy from the Misfits, and he was also in that Fortress movie with, I can't remember his name, but it was a decent movie. So Joe Gilgun, look him up, you'll find the movie. He plays an amazing character. He is just all around great. So it centrals around Cassidy meeting Jesse and Jesse coming back to town and finding Tulip and them getting together. And Jesse has some questions and he wants to ask God. So he realizes he has the power to get the answers he wants. So he goes on a quest to find God. And the central premise of Preacher is that when he starts finding answers, he finds out that God is missing. So God's nowhere to be found. So Jesse, Tulip, and Cassidy go on this quest, and they meet the other people. Fiore, DeBlanc, Saint of Killers. Man, that guy is really cool. Saint of Killers is one of the all-time coolest characters I've ever seen. He's on the screen right now. Definitely watch the show for him alone. Season 1, he's a complete nutbag. This man, whoever plays him, I can't remember his name. I think I have it written down. Graham McTavish. This dude is a monster of a man. So really well done show, really well cast. The central premise of the show is really interesting. It's very similar to like a Constantine, where you have two forces of all opposite powers in the universe fighting each other, but kind of under their own rules, with Earth being the fighting zone and the casualty area. So it's a really interesting concept like that. So that's basically the nuts and bones of the show itself. But I'd like to take a minute to talk about Hairstar and the Catholic Church, as depicted in the show and the comic book. It gives you a really disgusting visage of the Catholic Church, and it kind of brings the horrible nature of what the church has done in the past and gives it that physical look of horrible people and terrible deeds. And the leader is this giant fat dude that's always covered in grease, and he's just gross. And at one point he gets shot, and like he's so fat the bullet like it goes in, but it doesn't get anywhere near an organ or blood vessels or anything like that. It's really gross. But Hair Star is definitely one of these stars. That's him right there. Right there. And he's played by Rip Torrens, and he's just an absolute beast. He's one of those guys that would rather murder everybody in the competition than compete for whatever the prize is. You see him work his way through the military in a similar fashion and then get recruited by the Catholic Church for his ruthlessness. And he's basically tasked with finding Jesse and getting Genesis back. I'm not going to tell you why the Catholic Church wants Genesis. That was a really interesting twist. Very, very cool. I didn't see it coming, but I'm glad they did it because I thought it was just really, really neat. Kind of gross, but you'll see what I mean. That's the Messiah right there. That's Humperdoo. He's the last descendant of Christ, and that's all I'm really going to say. His name is Humperdoo. Kind of gives you an idea of what his character is. One of the only things that's kind of hard to watch about the show is Arseface. He's Jesse Custer's like best friend, and he tried to commit suicide by shooting himself in the face, and it didn't go well. So they kind of like pursed it up into like this weird butthole looking face. It's pretty awesome. So it's won one award, 16 nominations. Steve Dillon and Garth Ennis, the two people that created the comic book, they've worked for Marvel, DC. They have careers in the UK. Garth Ennis has worked on Judge Dredd. He's worked on Alan Moore on some projects. Alan Moore and Kevin Smith have a really good Swamp Thing comic book. But Steve Dillon, he's worked with Marvel UK, DC, Marvel, Image. He's been everywhere, man. I don't know a lot about Steve Dillon, but I know Garth Ennis, and I know his work, and I know it's nitty, it's gritty, it's gruesome, and it's dirty. So if you like that kind of storyline where it just gets gross and there's blood and guts and gore and all kinds of nasty stuff, this is definitely your show. It gets weird, it gets strange, but it also gets intense. It's a little bit comical at times. It's got some really good imagery. The idea of Custer being a priest on the warpath is just very, very cool to me. I'm not a big fan of the Catholic Church, but I think imagery involving it can be very, very cool. The warrior priest is one of the neatest ideas out there. The movie and the comic book Priest is also really good. You should check those out as well. So the last thing I wanted to get into is its average or its general ratings. The first season had about 1.6 million people on average. Season 2 was 1.1 million. Season 3 was 0.85. Season 4 with 0.53. So the idea of having a fifth season is really exciting because it definitely started to lose viewers in the later run, even though the later seasons are really, really good. They get into some really interesting storylines that get away from season 1, which is kind of a really good standalone season. If they never made a season 2, it would have still been a really good show. But other than that, we got the IMDb score is 8.0 out of 10 with 70,000 reviews. Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 89 with 71 reviews. Audience was 84% with 2,300 reviews. So it did pretty good. You can see why it got 4 seasons and could be coming back for a 5th. The lack of viewership, don't really know what's happening there, but it is definitely a good show. So definitely be one of the 500,000 people still tuning in because season 4 is going to be, season 5 is going to be really good. But that's everything for me today. I'm going to finish this up. I was going to do 4 little videos and mash them together into the finished product, but I think I'm going to stick with the 2 and kind of leave it at that. 2 pieces of video being edited together is going to be enough for me. I'm still learning, so please bear with me. I really appreciate everybody that watches, and you guys have a good night, and don't forget to keep your corpses cold.